Okay, the first thing I'd like to do is call the meeting to order, and we start with the pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And I should add, this is a Tuesday, August 15th, 2019. Roll call, please.
Hope.
Here.
Transier.
Here.
Olszewski. Here. Locher.
Here.
Funkhauser.
Here.
Readers.
Nay.
Chirulis.
Here.
Peterson.
Here.
We have a quorum.
So, Mr. Freer, not allowed to vote.
Right. Feels like that.
Okay. We have the agenda in front of us. Are there any changes? Seeing none, we'll move on. First thing we have is a presentation, a certificate of appreciation for retiring chief of police, Mr. Hart. Did he leave already? No, he's right there. He's over. Okay, so this one here is a little more words, same thing. The mayor of the city council of the United States of Yorkville present this certificate to Richard T. What's the T for? Thomas Hart. Like your son. Makes sense. With our deepest gratitude for his many hours of service, leadership, and commitment to the Yorkville community from July 1992 through August 2019, and for all of his contributions and achievements as police chief of the United States of Yorkville, congratulations. This 13th day of August 2019. Okay, we're down to minutes for approval. Okay, so now we have the next, the appointment and office, or oath of office for Jim Johnson. Now, where's Jim? He didn't leave, did he? Okay, now, before I do this, I have a few words about Jim. So Rich and I, we played Little League baseball together. Now, Jim here was the high school quarterback. For those of you who didn't know, Jim was right over here, what they call the freshman academy. Jim, how many winning drives did you command down the field? Just still here. Mine was the other way at the time. So Jim and I, and we go back a long ways too. So it's probably what, junior high, maybe fifth, sixth grade. So right when you took off and skipped town, Jim stepped in. It's a nice smooth transition. Same thing. You know, you're taking off, and now Jim's transitioning in. So one other thing I wanted to say, well, two other things. So I was talking to Pam, and Pam, you were worried your son wasn't going to be here because he had tryouts. How did the tryouts go? Excellent, good, thank you. And I told her, I said, listen, once they get done, he can speed over here because there's no damn cops out in the streets. And to remind me, these guys who work for Kendall County understand this. I used to kid, if you ever wanted to rob a bank in Newark, there's one bank, you go when there's a basketball game because everyone in town's there. It just reminds me of the same thing here. So, anyway, enough of that nonsense. Let's get this over with.
No, we have to do a motion.
Oh, wait, the motion. One.
I just motion and a vote.
I'm screwing this up. Okay. Oh, okay, well, good. I'm really getting back to you right now. I'll remember this 12 years from now if I have to do another one. What's what he said, 12 years. Okay, so I guess I need a motion tonight here.
You need a motion to appoint Jim Johnson as our police chief.
So, thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Milszewski. Okay, any discussion on the appointment? I'm sorry, I was trying to skip the council. You're already worried about that, I know. But, okay, there's a motion second, any discussion, all in favor, signify by aye, we need a roll call.
I think the vote can be taken by voice.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now, can we okay, now we'll get this done. Okay, so there's some former chiefs here from Yorkville. There's, I think, 3 or 4 of them. They want to step forward? Where are they? Come on, Rob.
Right now, you are the chief of police. Let's go.
Thank you.
I didn't like others.
Is this good, Rich? We're doing it properly now? Okay, I don't want to be corrected anymore. I'm sure I won't be.
I don't know that.
Yes, okay. So, raise your right hand, please, and repeat after me. I, James Jensen, having been appointed to the Chief of Police in the United City of Yorkville and the County of Kendall aforesaid, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States, the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of the Office of Chief of Police of the United City of Yorkville according to the best of my ability. Congratulations. No, you stay up here too. You never shine away from the picture.
Retirement's for me.
We get close together. Wow. Good. Yeah. No. Oh, we're talking about your dad. One point. much. Steve, can you shut those doors, please? See you, Par. Hi, ma'am. Can't hear us. What? Okay. Jim, I'm going to say something now that I forgot to say with all your friends and family here, but yeah, you know, it can be on the record. So, Jim, obviously I've known Jim a long time, but after I, first got elected, he told me, he says, I'd like to be the chief someday. He says, I'm not trying to chase outreach or anything. He said, I'd really like to be the chief someday. And I've known Jim a long time and knew he had a great career and I heard great things about him. And I flat out asked him, I said, well, should I offer you the position when it's available without interviewing anyone? And he said, no, you should go through the interview process. And so I thought, okay, that's fair. When the time came, and when I talked to him, I knew it was coming up soon because Rich and I had been talking. But sure enough, Jim, you're absolutely right. I went through the interview process and we had 37 or 38 candidates. And probably 15 or 20 of them were retired chiefs or current chiefs. And went through at the end, and there were some real good people. And in the end, Jim was absolutely the right person. So thanks, Jim. I appreciate it. Okay, now on to the contract or the chief police employment agreement. We have in your packet the agreement. I think we've discussed it before. I am looking for a motion to approve the agreement.
So moved. Second.
By Mr. Cope and second by Mr. Funkhauser. Is there any discussion on the motion? This will, please.
You talk about making a motion to table?
Is that a motion? It dies for lack of a second?
Yeah, we discussed it, I'm not sure
Okay.
what we're gonna do.
I thought it died for lack of a second, but thank you. Okay, this one does require a roll call. Roll, please.
Transier.
Aye.
Flocher.
Aye.
Frieders.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Hope.
Aye.
Milszewski.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Trulis.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much, and officially congratulations, Jim. Thank you. Okay, public hearings. Are there public hearings? None. Citizen comments on agenda items. Do we have any citizen comments on the agenda? No consent agenda. We have minutes for approval from the regular city council meeting July 23rd, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
I heard Mr. Transier, second by Milszewski. Any discussion, changes? All in favor, signify by aye. Aye. Oops, I don't vote, sorry. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item we have is bills for payments. We have bills totaling, now we're getting down to the end of the fiscal year 19 vendors. Would this be the last bunch?
Yeah,
Because they're doing the audit, I would hope they don't turn in bills for last year after the audit.
correct. This is it.
Okay, thank you. So we have fiscal year 19, $95.60. Fiscal year 20, $572,168.97. $62,515.08 in wire payments, $296,230.73 for the payroll ending 7/26, for a total of $931,010.38. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay. Okay. Funkhauser, oh, thank you. We'll do a roll call, please.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Trulis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Flocher.
Aye.
Frieders. Peterson.
Aye.
Hope.
Aye.
Milszewski.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Excellent, thank you. Okay, on to page 2, like Paul Harvey would say. We have the East Orange Street water main improvements under the mayor's report. Could we have a motion and a second? Let me read the motion. To approve the expansion of the East Orange Street water main improvement project to include the full width removal and replacement of the pavement west of Mill Street in a cost not to exceed $65,000.
Second.
Okay, was that Flocher for second? Okay, thank you, Frieders and Flocher. Okay, and if we could just get a brief explanation of this.
We started the removal and replacement of the East Orange Street water main and pavement above the water main. Originally, we had proposed, and it was approved, to only replace about half of the street width for an area generally east of 47 to about mid-block. When we dug up that half of the street, we found that the pavement that was on the remaining half was much worse than we had expected. And so we recommend a complete removal and replacement of the other half of the street. So this is a water fund related expense and can be coded out of there since we have some projects that are being deferred into future years while we recalibrate our water system.
Questions? Mr. Funkhauser?
I'm okay with the resurfacing project here, but when we talk about how we're funding this, we're talking about deferring the well 7 rehab, 165. Can we go into that just a little bit more? Sure. I mean, if we want to do it later, that's fine, but that kind of concerns me that we're putting off that one a little.
It will be rescheduled for next year. Preventative maintenance is not a required maintenance. So what we do is we pull the pump and check the bowls. So it's kind of like a doctor's visit checkup. But we don't have right now a full-time backup generator at the Beaver Street Booster Station. And that is a concern for us if we do have to transfer water from the central tower here, Tower Lane, to the south side without that booster. It is not possible. You'll end up taking water out of the south tower.
And that's what, we talked about this, having the generator, making sure that's in place.
Correct.
We're still moving forward with that project. We're just
That's
delaying.
the 7 generator.
That's
Beaver
the 7
Street generator is slated for next year.
Okay, so we're still on track with that one.
Correct.
This one, we're just going to defer some maintenance. Okay, as long as we're still moving forward, getting that generator.
We are. Yeah, and we would just feel more comfortable and conferring with the EEI and their water people, they said the 1 year will not be it.
Any further questions? Mr. Plocher, step out of the room, roll call, please.
Plocher? Reuters?
Aye.
Peterson?
Aye.
Coe?
Aye.
Milczynski?
Aye.
Funkhauser?
Aye.
Cirulis?
Aye.
And Zero.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. And the next item, I'm gonna have our attorney explain this, but could we get a motion to approve a resolution for a public road crossing license agreement for Hoover Drive?
Second.
Okay. Mr. Gentile and Mr. Frieders, thank you very much. Could you please explain this, please?
This is the last document the City Council will be asked to review in connection with the Hoover Forest Preserve. As you may recall, 3 years ago, we agreed to help the Forest Preserve by taking title, just the basic title to the property, to allow the Forest Preserve to get a grant from IDOT to create a safe crossing with sirens and lights, et cetera, and gates and noise. We went through a whole process for permission, had to appear before the Illinois Commerce Commission, had a full hearing, a petition. 3 years later, we are finally down to what is before you tonight, and it is a final agreement between City of Yorkville, Forest Preserve District, and the railroad, allowing the Forest Preserve District to use it. With the terms of this agreement absolutely remove any liability from the city in any way connected with this operation. We are only there in title only so that the Forest Preserve was eligible for the IDOT grant.
Awesome.
It's
Thank
done.
you. Thank you for the explanation. Questions, comments?
Is there a time frame when the improvements are going to be started?
They are completed. They are completed, which is interesting because we've been waiting for this agreement, as our city clerk can tell us, for several months, thinking they would require this before they finish the improvements. But I was wrong. State of Illinois has its own system.
Other questions? Do roll call, please.
Reuters?
Aye.
Peterson?
Aye.
Coe?
Aye.
Milczynski?
Aye.
Funkhauser?
Aye.
Cirulis?
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Very much. So, I have nothing else under mayor's report. Joel, do you want to report on your event at this point? What do you want to do?
Economic development?
No, I'm in your event for your subdivision.
Oh, sure. Coming up on August 24th, next Saturday, we have the Run the Whispers second annual 5K in my neighborhood. If you are unaware of the progress of the Whispering Meadows subdivision, we got brand new roads last year. My neighbors decided to throw a party to celebrate the new roads, and in doing so, they're also raising money for two organizations that I'm pretty proud to work with, Suicide Prevention Services in Batavia and Hope for the Day out of Chicago. Our event is sponsored by South Pank Original Barbecue and Heartland Beverage. We will have food, we will have drink, we will have a dunk tank you can dunk your least favorite alderman. And you can also help us raise money for Hope for the Day, mental health education, and suicide prevention resources. If you have any questions, you can check out runthewhispers.com. Email me or call me personally, and I'll see you there. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, actually, nothing else to the mayor's report. Public Works Committee, anything you want to talk about? No? Okay, EDC.
I would like to make a motion to authorize the staff to issue an invitation to bid for the downtown landscape hill project.
Second.
Second by the Freighters. Excellent. Anyone want to give a little explanation to those who aren't familiar with this?
Yeah, this is a project currently budgeted out of downtown TIF 2 and I think TIF 1 as well. This is an RFP only, so we're going to go out to bid for a concept plan for landscaping on the courthouse hill, which the city council would have reviewed last year at some point. We will see the bids open here in the next several weeks, review them at that time to figure out if it's a project that we think that we can afford and still want to move forward with.
Any questions? Comments? Roll call, please.
Peterson.
Aye.
Hope.
Aye.
Milczewski.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Trulis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Freighters.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and I'd like to make a motion to approve the memorandum of understanding regarding bike sharing services between King County Division of Transportation and the city, and authorize the mayor to execute.
Second.
I heard Seaver over there. Yes, for the second. Thank you, Seaver. And this one, Chrissy, you explained this pretty well, our staff meeting. You want to explain this one, please?
So, King County asked us to, in essence, provide some support through a memorandum of understanding for a bike sharing program. We are not obligating ourselves to be a part of the program, nor are we obligating dollars. It's just to say that we're in support of the Kane and Kendall County areas, looking into a bike sharing program and potential locations for those bikes in Yorkville.
Any questions?
Just a quick comment. We've only had that shared use path on 34 open for maybe about a week and a half, 2 weeks. I've seen more people on that path than I've seen on Kennedy, and I've seen a lot of people on Kennedy.
Wow.
So if we get this bike sharing thing and it makes sense for some business owners to sponsor one, I can guarantee that I will test out the fact that I might be able to drive from Yorkville to my job in Aurora without ever stepping foot in a roadway and getting killed. So I think that's pretty darn cool. So I think this comes at an opportune time. I'm not asking you to follow me and knock me over, but I'm just letting you know.
No, I was just
You got that
wondering.
look in your eye like,
No, I was
yeah.
wondering, are you physically fit enough?
Yeah. I believe that I am.
Okay, good. Excellent. Any other comments, questions? Roll call, please.
Hope.
Aye.
Milczewski.
Aye.
Funkhauser.
Aye.
Trulis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Freighters.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, Public Safety Committee report. Nothing. Admin Committee report.
No report.
Park Board. Could I get a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the application for an OSLAD grant for the development of Beecher Park and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute?
So moved.
Second.
I heard Frieders and Milczewski.
Maybe give it to her.
Is that correct? Or did I hear something
Jason and
else?
I were tied.
Oh, Oh, Jason, oh, no, you're right, I heard Jason, I'm sorry.
I'm seeing you don't like when I do it. You didn't get to Jason.
No, I'm trying to get everyone involved here. I'm trying to be inclusive. This is an inclusive democracy, or representative republic, I guess is what I read. So I'm going to try to explain this the best I can, and I might need to bail. But this is for a $437,700 grant, correct?
Yes, sir.
I got that much right. Thank you, Director.
Yeah.
And we're kicking in 60 grand of leftover money from Bristol Bay. We had some monies from Bristol Bay, and we've got our projects done there. We have 75 grand of land cash, and we have 90 grand of, they call it forced labor, right?
Yes, it's just staff labor.
Yeah,
Yes, they call it forced labor.
They call it forced labor, that's part of the grant. So, and this is for Beecher Park right over here to do some nice new improvements. And Tim, if you want to explain those improvements, I don't have those memorized.
Yeah, no, so we just had an opportunity, obviously explained in the memo that with the Bristol Bay grant complete and getting the reimbursement funds back, we had $120,000 in residual value left over from that we had to use in the next grant cycle, which is right now. And with staff doing their playground checks in the spring, they started to realize that the Beecher playground is deteriorating much faster than anticipated, and it's going to have to be replaced soon. So working with the park board, we thought this would be a great opportunity to do some redevelopment over there, add a new playground, put in some pickleball courts, and then put in a walking path being the highlights going around the entire park area. So that's what we're looking to do.
And you would hope to have an answer by when, did you say?
Ideally, we'd like to have it next year, but in the grant, we're looking at it potentially, if we would get approved, you're looking at getting a grant approval probably in March and April of next year, and then hopefully finishing it, doing the construction work by the end of next summer, next fall, and then getting all the actual paperwork in the following year.
Excellent.
So it'd be a 2-year process.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Mr. Funkhauser has one. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Freeman first.
If anybody has kids in baseball or attends hometown days, you'll know that this playground gets used and abused like you wouldn't imagine. Also, one of the main complaints that I've always had about hometown days is the fact that if, in fact, it does rain, there are no walking paths around the area. So the inclusion of a walking path makes me super excited. The only thing that I was concerned about was with the addition of the pickleball courts and the bocce courts that we would lose a place for the t-ball games, but I know that we have extra areas over at Bristol, and we've got the area right in front of the Beecher Center. But I think what we need to keep in mind is that for people that aren't from the area that attend hometown days, this is right where they walk past. So if it's something that we want to wait till it deteriorates and falls apart, we'd probably be paying more than we would if we had to kick any money in on the grant. So sometimes we get grants and it's like, hurry, 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 make a decision. This is one where there's been enough conversation about the area and about what improvements we can afford ourselves, but what we kind of have to do for preventative maintenance. That playground is falling apart. So just because it's one of our focal points during our largest festival, I think we should basically pay attention to Tim and his team and let them run forward with this grant.
Yeah, and one of the things is it's a point system. So unfortunately, it's a good thing and a bad thing. It's a good thing for the city is that we have more playgrounds than really what the state or even the national average is. So we're not going to score very high with that. So you have to add in things that's going to be unique. A pickleball court is going to be something unique to them that we don't have in this community. It also allows us to kind of tie it in with the senior service center there. It's one of the things that our older park board members have been kind of asking for is to put in a pickleball court. So it kind of helps out right over there and helps scoring points, bocce courts. So you got to sometimes add those things to help with the grant getting approval.
When you say older park board members, more senior ones in age or service?
In age.
So would Amy qualify for that? No? Okay, any other, Mr. Funkhauser?
Yeah, I had two comments. I guess it was three. The one was addressed by Joel, which was the T-ball, making sure that we have readdressed that.
And there's plenty of places. I mean, it's not that we want to necessarily move them there, but we have a lot of open fields throughout Yorkville to run a T-ball thing, and we've talked about that as a staff.
As long as they've got a place, that's good. I don't want to displace one for another. The new playground is absolutely good. It looks like we're going to take out the old one and do something different with that space. We're just shifting it from one space to another.
So I mean, Scott's been working on it, shifting it around. Some of it's making it easier for his staff to do maintenance work. I mean, it kind of gets difficult over there trying to mow certain areas, and So he wanted to move things around.
And you're going to keep all of the salvageable parts you can from the existing playground? Or
Yeah, so we have another park playground that matches up, is exactly the same. So it'll allow us, initially a few years ago, we had transferred some money into capital improvements to replace the playground. But with this opportunity coming, we can then use those parts to salvage the other playground for a few years if we need to. So
Yeah.
it'll help us sustain then 2 playgrounds here.
which is good. And then the last one, I just want to make sure that our walking path is a continuous loop, not, it looks like right now it actually stops at the driveway and drops off. If we can make it continuous where we're not going into the roadway or anything like that, I think that would be great for, circulation around that park.
Okay.
It'll be really, really nice to have that amenity next to the senior
Well, and it's
center.
one thing we've gotten just now that we've taken over in-house baseball, just getting people out to the fields
Yeah.
a lot easier. This will help with that, even
Yeah,
with
so
the high school doing soccer, being able
Find
to
a
get
way
out there.
to make it that way possibly, but I think this is great to have a continuous loop throughout this park. It's really a nice addition. Hopefully we can get it.
So,
Excellent. Other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Milczewski.
Aye.
Bunkhauser.
Aye.
Chirilis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Readers.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Okay, next item is the Riverfront Park East boat launch. We have A, B, and C. And I'll look for the motion here and then we can talk about it a little bit. So the motion is to approve the installation of the Riverfront Park East boat launch, to approve a professional design engineering services agreement with EEI, and to approve an ordinance authorizing the third amendment to the annual budget for the fiscal year commencing May 1st, 2019, and ending on April 30th, 2020, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute.
So moved. Second.
Freighters and Coke, give me a shot here. Okay, so this is for $20,000. Is that what you're estimating, correct?
Yes, sir.
And that includes the engineering. Most of the work can be done in-house, if not all of it.
it'll
What
all
did I
be
miss?
it'll all be done in-house.
Okay, it'll all be done in-house. What did I miss?
No, just on this one, this was actually money that we transferred in March of last fiscal year with the purpose of installing this. We just noticed once we got the actual entire riverfront development done, adding the new parking down there, we've seen a tremendous increase in fishermen, especially wanting to go north of the dam. They've kind of created their own area that's really not a safe way to do it. So we thought we could install this as well as hopefully then increase people coming down to the park and canoeing going north of the dam.
Questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Bunkhauser.
Aye.
Chirilis.
Aye.
Transier.
Aye.
Clocher.
Aye.
Readers.
Aye.
Peterson.
Aye.
Coe.
Aye.
Milczewski.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. Planning and Zoning Commission, we have nothing. City Council report. We have an update on the old jail. There will be no action tonight, but Mr. Olson, you've had numerous conversations on this. Please update us.
I have. So I'll start with the email that I sent to council last week, and it's covered in the city council packet. So we realized when we started to figure out where the dividing line is between the parking lots to the north and the jail building, that the existing parking lots on Madison Street are probably a third on the private property eventually, and a third within the right, or 2/3 within the right of way. So we had to address that in one way or another. The developer has been very concerned about having parking and trying to lease parking spaces from us or to buy parking spaces. So we looked at two options there. One is that we could relocate all of the parking within the right of way, so none of it was within their property, which would require, a little bit of work and some money. And you would either have no increase in parking spots, because you'd just be shifting south and you kept the existing layout, or you may not be able to do that with the amount of roadway there. You might have to do parallel parking, which would then result in a decrease in parking spaces. So our proposal there, we've got 16 to 20 spaces on the north side, is to just allow them to use the 2 regular parking spaces and the 1 ADA space currently for private parking, so they'd be able to sign it and tow people and restrict it if they really wanted to. And then lease the city's portion of the right-of-way that extends those parking spaces. So that's one concept previously not thought of within the term sheet up for discussion tonight. And then the second, which we discussed in the term sheet, involves parking spaces to the east of the existing parking spaces. And the same concept would, carry forward. If we're okay with extending the parking spaces to the east, we would then just lease those spaces as well. We might be able to get 3 spaces. I don't remember if I put a map in the pack or not. 3 or 4 spaces within the property that's adjacent to the jail. Yes, I did. And 2 to 4 spaces parallel, depending on what the county does with the Olson Kendall County property there. And the parking lot that's immediately north of those parallel spaces and then east of the existing building. I've had a conversation with Scott Keppel, administrator from Kendall County, about their use of not only the jail parking spaces for CAT buses, but also on the Olson Kendall County property for that same. Trying to figure out if there's a way that we can improve that so that it's public parking or have it be public use, whether it's tearing down the building, whether it's just doing something in the existing parking lot so that it's clear that it's public parking, striping it. There's a fair amount of grade there, so maybe leveling it off somehow, making it usable. And so that's kind of in play, something we have to figure out from an execution of the agreement. The update on our negotiations is the term sheet is still generally, or the terms within the term sheet are still generally the same. The one change that's come up just this afternoon actually was the front end tip incentives, so giving them 100% of their property taxes during construction, and then the back end 10-year where we're giving them 90, 85, or 80, rather than say like it's variable depending on how quickly they complete the building. We settled out, it's probably just easier for everybody to administer the agreement, not for them to count on it, to just give them 5 years of 100% starting from like the day that we approved the agreement, and then 4 years, so we've actually got it listed out by years. So then there's no variability in play depending on their construction. And then that's, I think, the biggest change. I can't think of anything else.
But it doesn't change the dollar amount committed to the project. So
It just
it's
better
just
defines it.
being specific as to when the city would be obligated to distribute the funds.
So that was a 2-hour meeting. And then there were a bunch of other non-substantial changes to the agreement just to better explain and implement the way that it goes. I've sent those changes back to the developer for review, so it's still in draft form. I'm hoping that by the end of the week they'll have signed off on it so that I can forward it to the city council and public. And we do anticipate that it will be on the August 27th city council agenda for consideration.
Mr. Funkhauser?
Okay, so the change of the timing for the payouts, that doesn't change our initial payouts for the $8,000,
Correct.
Couples.
Right.
Because we have the upfront initial payments. When it comes to the reimbursement, that is not going to be tied to any completion. It's just going to be date oriented.
So there's 4 upfront payouts, and then we'll call it 15 years of incremental payouts. The 4 upfront payouts have not changed. They still get $30,000 when they complete the roof, $50,000 when they complete the asbestos and lead removal, $17,500 when they complete the residential side of the building, and then $17,500 when they complete the commercial side of the building. So none of that has changed, and that's all based on trigger. So if they complete all that within, 4 months, then they would get all that within 4 months. But they anticipate construction to take 2 years.
2 years.
It's the payouts of the increment generated from their property only, the non-guaranteed funds, are going to be set in stone. So we're going to say whatever they receive in, if anything, in summer of 2020, they get 100% of that. We don't think that that's going to occur based on the timing of closing. But if it's $500 or $1,000, we'll turn around and rebate that to them at the end of 2020. So they get 5 years of 100%. So without regard really to timing of the construction, other than we did say in there that they have to complete the building by 2023. We threw that out there. They said 2 years. We said we'll give you 3.5 years basically to complete it in case if something goes awry, and that you can't transition and get money on the back end with the 90, 85, 80s until the project is actually completed. So if they don't complete it for whatever reason, they get money while they're under construction, but then they don't get anything on the back end. And then they wouldn't get whatever payouts on the front end that are triggered by completion of the building.
Other question, Mr. Koch?
We were just talking about, so, and basically that means an assessor has to reassess it
Right.
to increase that amount, right?
Correct.
And doesn't that lag a year?
Yes.
It does, so they would assess it based on 2019 ownership and improvements, and then bill it out in 20. So that's why we don't think that the first year is going to be anything.
If they
2
fall
years.
into 2020,
It'll be
does that say
2.
21 then?
Yeah, it will say whatever is generated and payable in summer of 2020, we rebate at the end of 2020. Whatever is paid on the property in 2021, we rebate to them at the end of 2021. So our guess is that they probably won't have an assessment for those 2 years. Right. But the agreement will be fixed to just say, I think
If there
last year
is.
is 2024, to just say like, that's the last year we're giving them 100% of what they're paying on the property for property taxes.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions, comments? Mr. Frieders?
Regarding parking over there, I don't have any preference since there's no home that's gonna be interfering with it. So I think that's something where it's like, do what you gotta do. I mean, you have to get creative because I know that the Olson property is probably gonna not be there very much longer, but I think it makes more sense to be creative with the property that we have right there. We can figure out however you have to. But there would never be a point when you make all of the parking spots north-south, right? They're always gonna be diagonal. The spouse wouldn't be able to fit like 3 extra ones in there? Because if you include that grass right there.
So we haven't talked about that. I don't know if there's the physical space to do it, if there was some other policy, either with the IDOT agreement that wouldn't permit it. I mean, I think that we'd be in favor of it from a city perspective. They came to us and wanted to restripe it that way.
Other questions, comments? Mr. Transier, do you have? Yeah, Mr. Koch, please.
So with the cat buses, what's their plan? Since you talked with them, are they gonna relocate them somewhere or?
Yeah, so we talked about it really in 2 phases, and we kind of just volleyed the issue up for the county to then respond and come up with a plan. But we had offered up, we have numerous city parking lots within, a few block radius, that we said, if it's 2 or 3 buses and it's, an interim parking situation, we're okay with that. So, ultimately, they probably need to find a better spot to permanently park those overnight, but, if they needed to do it at the downtown bank building overnight, every once in a while, or some of the other parking spots, we saw that as an okay temporary use. But they were gonna come back to us and say like, there's 2 buses or 5 buses, and we need them these days a week. So the office building for CAT is actually in the old courthouse. So they said like, the closer it is to there, the better it is for our drivers who can park and then walk. So we'll see.
Do we know if the county has any plans on improving the drive-in parking spots on Main and Fox?
Adjacent to the county building?
Yeah.
So that has also been a topic of conversation because those parking spots are actually in the right of way. And historically, the city has never improved them. And I don't know if that was just verbal or, Stein kind of thought. Yeah.
It looked like Whispering Meadows last year.
Yeah. So Scott Keppel had raised that a couple weeks ago. And we said, maybe we can append it onto a future project or work something out with them. So we were going to make sure that there wasn't an agreement that said like they were supposed to pay for it, we were supposed to pay for it before we proceeded. But they did recognize that was an issue.
Cool. Yeah, they saw it.
Mr. Peterson?
In lieu of public safety, is Mr. Rados, are you inspecting each gate, like the roof and the asbestos, lead, and elevation?
Yes, I'll be present for both things. The building this age, whenever they pull demolition permit, it requires all of their final forms, certificate forms for any of them, any of the waste goes to, and it'll also include their IAPA forms and the other, the information from their contract as a remediation work. Because we have to make sure that everything goes to the proper place. If IAPA ever says, hey, we never saw this stuff, we can just hand them all the information and say, this is what they gave us, it's falsified, then and work up. Okay, perfect, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Mr. Olson?
Just wanted to reiterate, we talked about it at the committee meeting, the conversation about how this is portrayed in the public in a TIF deal. And the property is not generating any property taxes. So I just wanted to reiterate that. The intent is to get a viable for-profit developer in there that's going to generate property taxes that for the next 20 years are going to be either diverted to this property through the TIF agreement or to the city for redevelopment purposes. But the end result is a win. You get development of a building that has been threatened to be torn down for 2 decades by different groups, and at the end of the day, it'll be returned to the tax rolls whenever the TIF is completed in whatever year that it is.
Questions? Any further comments, questions? Excellent. Well, let's hope that's ready for a vote in 2 weeks. City clerk report?
No report.
Community and liaison reports, any? No? Okay. Anything for staff?
I don't know if you wanted to talk about Mill Road.
It was next, but go right ahead if you want. I was next on my additional business. So.
The county highway committee did have a discussion today. Brad, maybe you can give us a little update if you've heard from your staff member.
Yeah, so the highway committee did meet this afternoon to discuss the roundabout consideration at Galena and Kennedy. So it's my understanding there were several alternatives that were reviewed, several items that were discussed. It's my understanding that Fran Klaus will be reaching out to the city to have a meeting and kind of discuss some of those options. But it's my understanding from my staff member that was at attendance that the preferred layout of the intersection would be more of a traditional intersection at Galena and Kennedy, meaning stoplight, that would handle the traffic out to the year 2050. And then there was also a recommendation that the planned Mill Road alignment, as was originally planned, would stay, but they would also recommend that there be a roundabout at Kennedy and Mill, basically opposite the Bridge Park. So that was the information that came about 5 o'clock this afternoon. Again, Fran, I believe, will be scheduling a meeting and coordinating that with staff, and we'll get into more of the weeds at that time.
So it doesn't appear that the roundabout had initial legs. That's still up for discussion. The bids for our Mill Road resurfacing were opened Friday. And so the engineer's estimate from the county is $120,000. The low bid came in from Geneva Construction at $140,797.50. So $20,000 higher than they expected. That's an engineer's estimate is what it was based on. Our staff is looking at it to see how that compares with our last couple bids. Our sense is, and this is coming from Fran too, they think that it's a little higher just because we did it this summer. We want to get it done this year. That's what happens when you bid things out. But it was still within reason, most likely. And so it's going to be forwarded to the county board for approval, and then they were looking for our consent on whether that price was okay, whether we wanted to move forward with it. We told them that we would take it to the Public Works Committee next week, and then do that at the August 27th City Council.
Questions or comments? Thank you both. Bart, you're reading my mind. I was next on my list, so I have no additional business now. Citizen comments? No citizen comments? So we have left, all we have left is executive session. There will be no action after executive session other than to adjourn. So anyone, including staff, who is not necessarily required for executive session, you're free to leave. You're also free to stay. I'm not kicking you out, but I'm giving you that option. Okay. So we have 2 items for executive session. First is for litigation with an action against affecting on behalf of particular public bodies filed pending for the court or administrative tribunal. Second is for the appointment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the public body or legal counsel for the public body. Is there a motion to approve?
Motion to
Motion is on executive session. Is there one? By Mr. Transier, second by Mr. Peterson. This does require a roll call, please.
Vogt.
Aye.
Wilczynski.
Aye.
Bunkhauser.
Aye.
Sherwood. Transier.
Aye.
Closer. Readers.
Present.
Pedersen.
Aye. 6-0-1. No, 6-1-1. Still carries.